What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we are going to be testing and tuning the Fardriver on my BombMoto B1. So I'm going to try to make this intro short and sweet. That way we can get as much into this video as possible. I'm sure it'll be a long one. But real quick, wanted to say shout out to all of my subscribers and my Patreon members. I really couldn't be doing this without you guys. So a big shout out to you guys, and anybody new here. I know these kinds of videos get a lot of new viewers and whatnot. So if this helps you guys, be sure to hit that subscribe button. It really helps out the channel. Let's get to 3K. Super pumped about that. But yeah, guys, so let's get right into it. First thing you guys do when you guys get your Fardriver either wired up or you get a kit and you're gonna get it set up. You're going to notice that your controller is beeping. So I'm going to go through a couple of the things that you guys will see and hear. That way you know what to do with it. So the first thing you're going to hear, if you actually wired this up yourself and it's a fresh Fardriver and it's not a kit from somebody. So the first thing you may hear is this. Looks like it's 7. So if you get 7 beeps, you know it is your temp sensor. So once we're connected to our controller, you're going to hear those 7 beeps. You're going to hit temp sensor. You're going to hit none. Now this is going to be for your B1, of course. If you do have a temp sensor and you're not sure which one it is, just hit temp sensor, choose an option, and then you're going to go to graph. And then you're going to look at motor temperature. It's in the middle to the right there. And it should be within the degrees that, or whatever the ambient temperature is. So let's go over another one. If you are running 48 volts, and actually I can't show you this one because I'm running 72 volts and I can't set off an under voltage alarm. But you'll notice I'll put a little picture right here showing you guys what the different beeps mean. So if you get that under voltage protect, all you're gonna need to do, or low voltage protect, is change your low voltage down to 39, or if you have a 60 volt, whatever the low voltage is on 60 volt. And if you are running 60 volt, chances are you won't get the low voltage protect until you're about half battery. So you'll probably be wondering why your bike shut down and is beeping when you still got half a battery left. So make sure you change your low voltage protect. And then after you get those set up, the last one you should hear is the auto learn. So we'll go ahead and enter auto learn. So if you can hear that, beep beep, and then a long beep, that means you are an auto learn. So what you're going to need to do at this point is you're going to have to take your chain off, go ahead, remove your cover, loosen the axle, slide it up forward, get the chain off of it, and then what you're going to want to do is just hold the throttle wide open. And what's going to happen is your front, or your sprocket's going to spin forwards for however long. It's going to slow down, and then it's going to spin backwards. Now, sometimes this might feel like it's taking forever. Just trust the process. It will go through the auto learn. If it doesn't, you might have some other issues. But yeah, once you're done with the auto learn, it'll beep twice, and then it'll either say system okay, or it'll say throttle error. Once you let off, it should say system okay, and the beeping should stop completely. And after that, you are completely done. So I'm going to go ahead and exit learn. I don't need it. Okay, so once we're through with auto learn, you're going to have your parameters. So basically, auto learn is going to set your rated speed, rated power, max speed, and I don't believe max speed, a couple things, and then it's also going to change your phase offset. Now you can leave everything as is for now. Now if you're running a 72-300, I would tell you guys to set your max phase current down to 210 instead of 300. Of course, if you're running a 72 450 or anything bigger, go ahead, change your max phase current down to 210 and your max line current to 100 amps. Again, on the BombMoto, if you're running anything after 5 kilowatts, the motor and something happens to the motor, you are on your own. So if you want to keep it within spec, run it at 70 amps. That's around 5 kilowatts. And so yeah. So once you get those two done, you can go ahead and give it a little ride. And you just want to make sure that your motor doesn't sound crunchy on takeoff. You want to make sure it's nice and smooth. So if it is not nice and smooth and it sounds kind of crunchy and bad, what you're going to want to do is go up to your phase offset. Now this will probably be auto learned around 80, 70, 80. So what you're going to want to do is go up by 10, go up or down, and then go ahead, hit OK, and then hit save. And then what you want to do is just go ahead and ride it again. Now you're going to keep doing that until you get it to where it feels nice and solid, sounds good. And then you're going to want to go back to your phase offset. Now whether you're going up or down, you want to go up or down a lower increment. So instead of going up by 10, we'll go up by 5 and see if you can get it a little bit more dialed. And if you can or can't, go back, try going up or down by 3, by 2. You really just want to dial that number in. Now as you can see, my parameters, I have my phase offset at 100, pole pairs at 4. We have our max speed at 7,000 RPM. Now I do recommend limiting this thing to around 6,300 RPM. That is going to be around 50 miles per hour. Now I have seen the magnets crack from a buddy pushing this thing way past. I think he was running around 6,500 RPMs. So if you want to protect your motor, I would keep it around 50 miles per hour. I know everybody wants to hit that 60 mile per hour mark, but just wait for sprockets. Once we can change gearing, we can hit those numbers, So now we're going to go through some user preferences. So you have your throttle response. Now you got sport, which is really snappy, really jumpy. We got line, which is my favorite. It's pretty smooth. It's good for wheelies. And then you have eco. Now eco, you kind of get that lag to it, so it's not as great. And then we have throttle ACC step, throttle acceleration step, and then we have our throttle decel step. Now throttle decel step, I recommend just leaving it at 224. That way when you let off the throttle, the power will cut when you want it to, and it's very predictable. The throttle ACC step, now you can go from like 64 to 224. I prefer to run mine at 224. That way it's nice and snappy, and it's got a great throttle response. If you guys want a little less snappy, you can turn it down to 64. Can turn it to 124, so you guys can play with that. That's going to be user preference, like I said. Now we got weak response. We'll leave that at 1. And then we have weak character. We'll mess with that a little bit. You can have the weak in kick in fast, middle, or slowly. We're going to play around with that, see which one gets us to the top speed. Then we're going to have our ratios in speed. Now once you get your throttle set up from 500 RPM all the way up to 9,000 RPM, it's going to taper from 100 all the way to 0. So as you can see, mine is already set to 100 all the way up to 3,500 RPM, and then at 4,000 RPM I start to taper down. Now that is what's going to get you your top speed. It's going to lower the amperage and help the motor to spin more RPMs. If we were to set this at 100, it would just give us 100% of the battery current. And you know, eventually it's going to give up on RPM, you know, whatever the motor is rated to. And, you know, tapering that off is going to help us get more RPM than the motor will allow. So we'll mess with that here in just a second. We got our ratios and gear. So I get this question a lot. How do I change my mode 1, 2, and 3? So if we go back up here to parameters, all of these settings we set, that is our mode 3. That is our maximum parameters set. Then we go down to ratios and gear. We got low speed line, mid speed line, and then some options underneath those. As you can see, we got 75% on mid. So that is going to be 75% of the line amps that we have put. So we have 100. That makes it easy math. So 75% of 100 is going to be 75 amps. So in mode 2, I'm making roughly 5 kilowatts. Same thing with mid-speed phase ratio. Whatever 75% of our 210 that we have set will now be our mode 2. And then same exact thing for mode 1, which would be low speed. We're at 25%, which would be 20 amps, and 50%, which would be 105 phase amps. You can also limit your RPM. That way, if you know, let's say 3,500 RPM is around 30 miles an hour, or you know, you want to go down to 2,500 RPM, which keeps it around 20 miles per hour for the kiddos or whatever. You can also do that. So you'll still have the power, but once you get to that RPM, it will cut it off completely and you can't go any faster. Energy regen, I don't use that stuff a lot, so I'm not going to go over that. You can kind of play with that. Functions, if you're running a display, I have a DKD video that kind of runs through these a little bit, so you guys can check that out. Excuse me, I meant to say display. Display is where you're going to find in that video. As far as functions, you can change your pin locations. Like let's say you have your mode 1 and 2 and 3 kind of backwards on your switch and you don't want to dig into your wiring. What you can do is go to high speed pin, and as we can see, low speed is pin 2, so you could change pin 3 to pin 2. And then vice versa. That way it'll switch out your buttons for you. So you can do a little bit of that stuff. You know, you can turn off the boost pin, the cruise pin. So you can set a couple things up here. Now, gear default D. This will mess with how your mode switches. So you can actually find one to put it on a momentary switch. That way you press it, it'll go like sequentially through your modes, or you know, other stuff like that. So we got follow. So if you do want to run your regen, you'll have to change follow to EABS when brake is valid, which means if you have high brake, low brake set up, when you press it, you know, it'll initiate the regen, or EABS when release throttle. That means when you let off your throttle, the regen will start to kick in. Again, not going to go through too much of that stuff. Display, again, we have all this stuff right here. You can go to my DKD video, and at the end you can see how high I have mine set up and how it works with the actual display itself. Protect, we went over this. You know, all you need to worry about is your low voltage protect. Everything else you can kind of leave alone, not a big deal. Now we got our PID parameters. Now some motors like to run at AN16, some like to run at AN0. You know, what I was doing was running this at AN6, and then from my start to max KI, you can actually move around your torque. So if you put, let's say 4, 6, 8 instead of 4, 8, 12, all your torque will be more in the low to mid range. But you will end up losing top speed if you mess around with those. So I prefer to leave mine alone. Product and fixed parameters, you don't really want to worry about any of that stuff. But yeah, so I think the main thing here is we are going to test our top speed. Now we have already done a top speed run on this. in a earlier video, but let's see if we can get a little bit more out of it. So what I'm gonna do now, we're just gonna hit a top speed run. Sheesh, this thing pulls. Actually, I haven't even ridden this thing with a full charge, so we are at 83 volts right now, and we're gonna go ahead, go for a max speed run. Oh, she pulls good. Shut the visor. So we're on the 72-450 at 100 amps, obviously, with a BombMoto B1 battery. So we are running slightly uphill. And it looks like we are touching 48 miles per hour. Well, let's go ahead and go to our app. Our goal today is going to be hitting 50. All right, so what I'm going to do now is go to my ratios and speed. And what I'm going to be doing is, instead of starting at 4,000 RPM, I'll start my weakening at around 45. So I'll kind of bump all these numbers over. So at 4,000, we'll go back to 100. 45, let's do 94. You know, I kind of just guess. You can be a little bit more precise with these numbers, looking at your graph and whatnot. So let's do 86. Let's see, 77. So I like to go down about 8 or 9% each. So we're 77, and we'll go to go to 68, and then 6,500 RPMs. We'll put it down to 60. So let's go ahead. Oh, there we go. Sometimes it's a little laggy, and sometimes if your settings don't change, go ahead, turn it off and turn it back on. So we're going to save that and see if it does anything for us. Now we should have the torque hold out a little bit longer since we moved the phase, or the weakening, up. Excuse me for not wearing my gloves. It'd be a pain in the butt taking them on and off for the video. There we go, 49.50, got 51. 52. Alright, and then we're gonna go ahead and turn around, because as I said, it is a little bit uphill going the other way, so obviously downhill coming this way. So we'll see if we can hit 50 going slightly uphill. Nine, 50, 51, 52, 53. Just holding steady at 51. So in my opinion, this right here is a perfectly safe tune. You know, I would probably limit it to 50 miles an hour, but it is. The power is extremely linear all the way through. It feels great. I do notice a bit of a shift at the top of my RPMs. Like as soon as I hit 50, you can feel the power kind of back off and back on. So what I'm thinking is I might have the weakening dropping down too much. So let's see if we can do 70 at 6,000 RPM once we hit, because 6,000 is about where we hit 50 miles an hour. 65 we'll put down to 65. We're going to save that, Actually, real quick, so let's go to our, oh, where's that? Weak character. So instead of fast, we'll put it in middle. That way it won't be such a sudden jump in between the next percentage of field weakening. So we'll put that to middle. Weak response, I know, it changed around a lot. So 1 should be the highest amount of weakening, 7 being none. Actually, it might be 0, but I like to leave mine at 1. You guys can mess with that a little bit more if you want. You will notice a little bit of heat if you really max out your weakening on these things. And then another thing I wanted to hit on is throttle low. Now you can bring this down to where you barely have any play in here, but the problem with that is these throttles will eventually wear out, and if you go anywhere under like 0.85, you'll start to have creep, where the bike will actually start moving by itself, and over time it could get worse to where if you let off the throttle, the thing's just going to keep going. That could get very dangerous. So I prefer to leave my throttle low exactly where it is after the auto learn. It's better to be safe than sorry. Along with your throttle decel step, always leave that at 224. If it is lower than your throttle ACC step, you'll notice that when you let off the throttle, the bike still continues to pull until it slowly ramps off the throttle, which is not what you want. When you let off the throttle, you don't want nothing happening. All right, so let's go ahead. We got our stuff saved here. Cool deal. And then what I'm going to do is pull up the graph. That way we can have a little look while I'm doing this run. Okay. See if we can smooth out that top a little bit. So it's coming a little bit slower, 52. We are at 65. Yeah, to be honest with you guys, I don't think I would comfortably push this thing over 6,300 RPM. So I kind of do feel it's struggling. As soon as it hits about 51 to 53, you can kind of feel it back off and then pull back in, back off. So, comfortably, I don't suggest going over 6,300 RPM. So what I would do is go to my max speed. We're going to put 6,300. Hit OK. We're going to hit save. And then we'll go back to our graph. And now once we hit 6,300 RPM, the bike should just stop pulling. So let's go ahead. Such good torque off the line. Pulls hard to 40. Weakening's kicking in pretty good. Alright, I wasn't able to watch the RPMs, but it looks like we were only hitting 48 miles per hour. So what I'm going to do is make sure my camera's still recording. Alright, we're good. So what I'm going to do now is change my weak character back to fast. I'm going to save that. We're going to leave our max speed at 6,300 RPM, and then we'll go back to graph and we'll do another rip. We are at 80 volts, so we've rode 2.2 miles so far. All nothing but top speed runs. So maybe at the end of this, it'll give us a kind of a good idea of what the range may be. on the BombMoto 72 volt 30 amp hour. Alright, so it does seem like I'm hitting a wall here. So what we're gonna do, we'll go ahead and bump our max speed up to 6,500. Save that. Again, AN at 16, phase offset at 100. Ran out of room on the memory card, so I had to make some real quick. So again, like I said, we're gonna change our max speed back up to 6,500 RPM. We already have that saved. We'll go to our graph, we'll check it out, and let's see if we can hit that 50 mile per hour mark. And it looks like 49. Now this may be because I'm getting somewhat lower voltage right now, but what I'm going to do first is go down to our ratios and speed. Now I do still feel like it's kind of coming in a little too hard, right around 5,500. So what I'm going to do is change that to 79, and we'll change 6,000 to 73, and then 65 won't matter too much, but we'll put that at 68. Now let's save this, go to our graph, let's do another rip. And then our max speed still set at 6,500 RPMs. See if this makes a difference. Oh, is he pulling? There it is, 50 miles an hour. Still holding 49. I would like it to hold on to 50. So go ahead. We're going to change our weak character to middle. Save that real quick. And then once we're done, I do want to play around with the race response. Have not yet, but I'm thinking that's more of a user preference kind of deal. Alright, so let's go ahead and see what weak response in the middle does. Yep, still holding about 49. So let's just verify. We'll put our max speed up to 6,700. Again, this could be because I am running out of battery. not running out of battery, but a very lower voltage than I was when we first started. There's 50, 51. So this is more like it. We're sitting right around 63, little over 6,300 RPM, coming in hot. So that seems like it's pretty good right there. You know, I could go crazy and try to spin this motor out, you know, even faster and try to hit, you know, 55. But you know, that's going to be on me. That is going to be completely my risk. Now, BombMoto as a new company, you know, I don't think they have the stock to be sending you guys out new motors if you guys need to buy them. You know, warranties are going to come first for people who are staying at that 5 kilowatt mark. Now, just to show you guys what 5 kilowatts might look like, let's go ahead and change our line amps down to 70. We're going to keep our phase at 210, and then we're going to leave the rest of our settings alone. So let's see, I'm thinking we should be able to hit around 45 still. Maybe even more. Just depends on if the amps can push us through. Definitely still feels pretty good. It doesn't have quite the punch. There's 44, there's 45. $46. Very, very smooth 46. Feels really good. So even if you want to stay in that lower spec, around 5 kilowatts, you know, I didn't actually look. We're probably a little over 5 kilowatts, but you know, this is still an extremely solid bike. I mean, 45 miles per hour, 5 kilowatts. You know, it's the mototec motor. That thing wanted to wrap out. You know, the MY 1020s, they only hit about, you know, 4 or 5, maybe 5,000 RPMs. I can't remember. I think they do spin to like 55 or something. But you know, you'd have to change your gearing in order to get these speeds. So, you know, you're sacrificing a ton of torque to get up to 50 miles per hour. When this B1 motor, you know, it's spinning at 6,300 RPM, it's giving you torque until, you know, 40 miles an hour, where, you know, the weakening starts to kick in, it slows down a little bit so you can get that RPM. And we're hitting, you know, if you want to go crazy, we hit what, 53 earlier? I mean, that's pretty good. So I imagine, you know, if we went a little crazy and pushed this thing at its peak, you know, the battery at its peak, like 120, you know, we could probably hit 55. But again, you don't want to do that. You want this thing to last you a long time. Another thing, let's go ahead and put our hand on the motor. She's pretty hot. Nothing but back-to-back speed pulls. So, you know, we are getting a little heat soaked. So I'm sure, you know, that's going to contribute to a little bit less speed. So, you know, that 49 miles per hour I was hitting earlier, we might actually have gotten, you know, 50. But I think from right here, I'm going to call this good. So I'll go ahead and slowly scroll through here so that way you guys can copy me. Now, some motors are going to be slightly different. Your phase offset might be slightly different, but everything should run pretty similarly. Go ahead, copy down those ratios and speed. Another thing I wanted to mention is I see a lot of these kits where the ratios and speed aren't touched. Basically, they just set a couple things, tell you to auto learn it, and send you on your way. And a lot of people are very disappointed because there's not a lot of torque. And, you know, that is 100% the reason. I mean, you're just getting field weakening from, 1000 RPMs all the way up, so it's cutting back a lot of those amps. And if you set it like this, you're still going to get that top speed. You're still going to get that crazy amount of torque all the way through. But yeah, guys, hopefully all these settings do help you. If they do, let me know down in the comments. Like I said, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button. It's the easiest way you can help the channel. If you want to go a little bit further, you can check out my Patreon. Of course, I have these videos up before I have them public, so all my Patreon subscribers get to see it first. But over here, we like to make sure everybody can get this information. So of course, this is going to be public. But all right, guys. I think that's going to do it for the tune. I think what I'm going to do now is just mess with some things. So we'll go to race response, turn that on. A buddy of mine actually was saying that it hits pretty hard, so we'll give that a shot. We'll go ahead and turn this back up. I'm going to do some silly shit, and we're going to put it at 120. 65. We'll try not to hit 7,000 RPM, but just in case, put that at 68. We'll put that at 60. Save. And then our max speed, just to do some silly shit, we'll put it at 7,500. Save. Put on the graph for you guys. Let's see what this thing can do. $53, $54, $55. Yeah, guys, 55 miles per hour. Pretty crazy. I think, if we go up a couple teeth in the front here, or even go down a couple in the back here with the custom Rebel Gear sprocket, we could easily hit 50 with the safer tunings, and probably even 65 if we went crazy like this. But again, I'm risking this for you guys, so you don't have to do it. You know what I'm saying? So confirmed, this thing hits 55 miles per hour. I do have this DKD dialed in, at least with my cheesy GPS app, which I've confirmed in my Jeep as well. They are exact on point with each other. But yeah, guys, this video is probably going to be like an hour long, just because I want you to see the whole process of it. So I apologize if it's too long. Hopefully you stuck around to the end. If you did, let me know. But yeah, guys, till next time.